Hello everyone, my name is Lachlan Goodison. I'm a sports physiotherapist with Peninsula Sports Medicine Group. And I thought I might take the opportunity to make this short video for all parents and coaches out there, as hopefully these COVID restrictions get lifted in the next week or two and our kids get back to sport. We need to be unfortunately mindful of a few things in this period of shutdown that have occurred to our kids, which are going to potentially set them up for trouble as we go back to sport. Prior to puberty, kids normally grow about 8 to 10 centimetres a year, about a centimetre a month. Once we reach puberty, the pituitary gland releases growth hormone that goes all over the body and targets the growth plates of the long bones. So our long leg bones, for example, growth plate goes puberty and starts to grow. At this point in time, kids can typically grow half an inch to an inch and a half in a 24-hour period. And I'm sure you've all seen nieces and nephews infrequently, and when you do see them, they're shot up. This is what's happening. Add to that, in Australia and the Southern Hemisphere, kids normally grow in February and September. It's opposite for the Northern Hemisphere. So we've gone through February, growth spurt time, into shutdown. And the kids haven't been active. I'm sure they haven't been stretching. Their long bones potentially have been growing, and they've gone from little growth to massive spurts. This is great because they're growing and eating out of house and home. It's bad from a biomechanical point of view because their muscles, ligaments and tendons don't stretch at the same rate to keep up. So we often see 12-year-olds who can touch their toes and 13-year-olds who can barely touch their knees. This predisposes them to injury. So we've had a background of growth and relative inactivity. In 2 weeks' time, the lid comes off, we're hopefully going to go back to sport. And the average kid sporting game goes for 40 minutes to an hour. Your kids are going to be running for 40 minutes to an hour. Have they been doing that for the last 4 to 6 weeks? A couple of times a week? Probably not. Obviously there's a lot of jumping, a lot of sprinting, different types of load, putting through these tendons and ligaments that haven't been stretched enough to keep up. This predisposes to injury, and what we see in the clinic is your typical growing pains. Your severs, which is where the Achilles tendon pulls away from the heel bone. Your Osgood slatters, where the patellar tendon rips away from the shin bone, and basketballers will often get a little lump there. Your patellar tendon can start to fray, that's Sinding Larsen-Johansson syndrome, or jumper's knee. An avulsion is an injury where a muscle rips a bit of bone with it away from the anchoring bone. For example, a hamstring will rip off the pelvis. We see this a lot in adolescent dancers, girls who do calisthenics or cheerleading, when they're trying to do the splits or high leg kicks. We see a lot in footballers when they're trying to kick long, and sprinters when they're trying to sprint, often always after a growth spurt. These are the sort of things we see in kids who have a growth spurt, add too much load, don't have the inherent flexibility, and they end up breaking down and coming to see us. So what can you as parents and coaches do to minimise the potential risk of injury to the kids when they go back to sport? My advice the next couple of weeks, let's get them running. Let's get them up to 40 minutes to 1 hour 3 times a week. In a week's time, 10 days time, introduce some sprinting and some jumping. We don't want to load things too quickly, or they will break down, but they do need to do the homework now, otherwise if they go back to full-on playing in 2 weeks' time, they are going to break down. As a sports physiotherapist, we look at multiple things when diagnosing the biomechanical causes of these injuries. And from my point of view, inherent flexibility is pretty important. When footballers kick a football long distance, their sciatic nerve is expected to extend by 4 centimetres. In adolescents that have had growth spurts, not only do they lack flexibility in their hamstrings, but importantly, they lack flexibility in their spinal cord and sciatic nerves. And it's often these nerve restrictions that set them up for injuries which will look like a torn hamstring or a back-related hamstring you often hear in AFL parlance. So the reason I am big on getting flexibility and getting head on the knees is that we're actually stretching the sciatic nerves in these adolescents. With netballers, basketballers and footballers, we find that if there's an asymmetry in ankle range, for example, which may be by virtue of a sprained ankle from the season before, there's a 30% chance increased risk of them rupturing their cruciate ligament in their knee when going back to sport. So as physios, we don't just look at normal flexibility, but we look for asymmetries in flexibility from one side of the body to the other. So at the very least, being able to have your kids touch their toes, ideally get their head on their knees. There are many other muscle lengths and strengths we look at, hip ranges, knee ranges, all sorts of stuff. But if I can give you these 2 bits of advice, get them running and get their flexibility up to speed. And hopefully we can minimise any potential flare-ups of these growing pains, and you won't be spending any dollars at the physio. So I hope you found this pretty simple video of benefit. Good luck to all of us. May our kids get back there quickly and our lives return to normal. Thanking you.